Peppa and George packed the picnic basket with Mummy Pig, bringing bread, fruit, and drinks. The family walked into the colorful flower garden with bees and butterflies flying around.
Hey!
Peppa picked a red rose. George picked a sunflower, both laughing happily. Daddy Pig lifted Peppa to reach a tall flower. Peppa raised her hand excitedly. George curiously watched a snail crawling on a leaf. The family sat on the picnic blanket, eating bread, drinking water, and enjoying the beautiful garden view. Peppa and George brought the big building block set from the house to the yard, excited to start the game. Mummy Pig spread a large blanket on the grass, making it comfortable for Peppa and George to play with their Lego. Peppa started building a beautiful castle with the large blocks, while George carefully placed the smaller pieces around it. Daddy Pig joined in, trying to build a tall tower with the blocks, making the whole family laugh. Mummy Pig added special blocks to the castle, creating flags and flowers, and the whole family clapped and cheered. The family sat around the Lego castle, laughing happily and taking photos of their wonderful creation. Peppa and George couldn't believe their eyes when they saw a piece of bread flying through the air. They decided to chase the flying bread, but it was fast and looped around like a plane. It seemed like this piece of bread wasn't easy to catch, and it took a quick break on a tree branch. Surely this bread knew how to play tag, and Peppa seemed to be its favorite target. After an adventure, Peppa finally caught the flying bread and smiled happily. Finally, Peppa and George realized that sometimes the best adventures are when you can enjoy the fruits of your efforts. Peppa and George were amazed when a giant ball rolled toward them. The ball was too big, but Peppa didn't give up and decided to push it. The rolling ball created funny circles, making Peppa laugh non-stop. George joined in, helping Peppa to control the giant ball together. When the ball hit a puddle, huge splashes sprayed everywhere, making them laugh even more. Finally, they realized that sometimes the greatest fun is just a giant ball and your own laughter. Peppa and George were walking when they discovered a mysterious vegetable garden with tall, colorful plants. George curiously touched a giant carrot, while Peppa picked up a pumpkin almost as big as her head. Wow! Mummy Pig entered the garden, smiling and said, "Look, kids, these vegetables are really special." Peppa and George played hopping through the tall plants, laughing joyfully across the garden. Daddy Pig appeared with a small cart so the whole family could harvest the vegetables together. Finally, the whole family stood in the garden, admiring the colorful pumpkins, carrots, and greens, happily taking a family photo. Peppa and George were sitting in the yard when they looked up at the sky and saw a cloud shaped like a bear. Peppa pointed at the sky and said, "Look, this cloud looks like a bear sleeping." George mimicked the bear, lying down and pretending to sleep on the grass, making Peppa laugh loudly. Mummy Pig walked over and saw them, saying, "You both are so cute, just like real bears." Peppa and George stood up and began imitating bears, walking slowly around the yard, laughing happily. Finally, the whole family sat together in the yard, looking at the bear-shaped cloud and enjoying the simple joy of the moment. Peppa was surprised to see a strange hat on the grass. Whoa! George ran over and touched it, lights twinkling from the hat. Whoa! Peppa put the hat on. Bubbles of light floated across the garden. Magical indeed! George tried the hat too, bubbles swirling around them, making them laugh out loud. The bubbles rose and settled on the tree branches, sparkling in the sunlight. They took off the hat, bubbles faded, but the magical joy lingered in the garden. Peppa and George stood on the grass, seeing a big banner. Funny dance contest. George did a flip in the air, making Peppa laugh happily. Peppa tried dancing to the music, but slipped on a leaf, both of them laughing uncontrollably. Daddy and Mummy Pig stood beside them, laughing and cheering them on. Finally, Peppa and George received their medals, and the whole family hugged and laughed together. Peppa and George were walking near a sparkling, crystal-clear lake. Whoa! Peppa set a paper boat out on the water, and George watched it float gently. Daddy Pig brought a small paddleboard, suggesting they could have a boat race. Peppa and George paddled lightly, laughing as their boat glided across the lake. Mummy Pig stood by the lake, taking pictures and reminding them, "Don't go too far." Finally, the whole family stood by the lake, admiring the sparkling water and enjoying a peaceful moment. Peppa and George couldn't believe their eyes when they saw a piece of bread flying through the air. They decided to chase the flying bread, but it was fast and looped around like a plane. It seemed like this piece of bread wasn't easy to catch, and it took a quick break on a tree branch. Surely this bread knew how to play tag, and Peppa seemed to be its favorite target. After an adventure, Peppa finally caught the flying bread and smiled happily. Finally, Peppa and George realized that sometimes the best adventures are when you can enjoy the fruits of your efforts. Peppa and George couldn't believe their eyes.
Wow.
A giant truck was parked right in their yard. This truck is not only big but full of strange things inside. Peppa is curious and wants to try them all. George tried to push the giant wheel, but he might need a bit more strength to move it. No worries. Peppa decides to drive the giant truck, but it seems it's not as easy as she thought. Sometimes all it takes is a little push on the gas pedal to start an adventure, even if it's a bit out of control. Finally, the truck stops, and Peppa and George realize one thing. Sometimes the fun starts with the most random things. Peppa and George were playing in the park when suddenly some balloons started floating in the air. Both of them decided to chase after the flying balloons, but they kept floating higher and higher. George jumped as high as he could to catch one, but sadly, he still couldn't reach it. Peppa found a chair to climb on, stretching her hands out, but the balloon floated even further away. Finally, one balloon gently floated down near Peppa and George, and they were thrilled to catch it. Peppa and George realized that sometimes the simplest joys bring the happiest moments. Peppa and George were playing in the park when suddenly some balloons started floating in the air. Both of them decided to chase after the flying balloons, but they kept floating higher and higher. George jumped as high as he could to catch one, but sadly, he still couldn't reach it. Peppa found a chair to climb on, stretching her hands out, but the balloon floated even further away. Finally, one balloon gently floated down near Peppa and George, and they were thrilled to catch it. Peppa and George realized that sometimes the simplest joys bring the happiest moments. Peppa and George decided to join a race. But not an ordinary race, it's a trash truck race. Trash trucks may not be fast, but Peppa and George can do anything when they're determined. The race gets more exciting as both trucks speed through obstacles. However, no race is without surprises, and Peppa couldn't escape this trap hole. No one wins when there are too many obstacles, but at least both had fun. The race ends, but Peppa and George realize that having fun is more important than anything else. Peppa was surprised to see a strange hat on the grass.
Whoa!
George ran over and touched it, lights twinkling from the hat.
Whoa!
Peppa put the hat on. Bubbles of light floated across the garden. Magical indeed. George tried the hat too, bubbles swirling around them, making them laugh out loud. The bubbles rose and settled on the tree branches, sparkling in the sunlight. They took off the hat, bubbles faded, but the magical joy lingered in the garden. Peppa and George were watching the clouds, and today there was a special cloud, a cloud bus. Who needs a real bus when with just imagination, Peppa and George are already flying high? The clouds looked like strange creatures, and Peppa couldn't stop imagining they were dancing with her. Not just a cloud bus, now there's a cloud elephant greeting them. The ride through these clouds was magical, and they met even more cloud friends. Although the journey was just in their imagination, Peppa and George had an unforgettable adventure. Peppa and George were playing in the garden when they spotted a giant toy car rolling toward them. George quickly climbed into the toy car, took the wheel, and laughed happily as the car started rolling. Peppa tried to chase the car, but it was too fast, making her run after it. Mummy Pig saw them and reminded, "Be careful! Don't let the car roll too far!" Peppa and George took turns driving the toy car, going over small tree stumps in the garden. Finally, the toy car stopped, and Peppa and George got out, laughing joyfully from their fun adventure. Peppa and George ran outside to play as the rain started. They jumped into puddles, splashing water everywhere. Mummy Pig brought raincoats and reminded them, "Be careful, don't slip." Daddy Pig appeared with a big umbrella, sheltering Peppa and George from the rain. Peppa found a giant puddle, carefully jumped in, and laughed with joy. Finally, the whole family stood under the umbrella, watching Peppa and George dance in the rain, laughing together. the giant energy vortex. Find the fishing boat. At night, a fishing boat heads out to sea. Moonlight on the waves, but danger waits ahead. The fishing boat enters the dark strait. Rocks on both sides, danger closes in. Crash! The boat hits the rock. The hull is breaking. Danger is real. Alert! There's a report of an accident at sea. The fishing boat is in danger. Rescue cars, respond immediately. Rescue cars on the move. Police leads, tow ready, helicopter up. Police car transforms, wheels turn to propellers, mask and snorkel on, ready to dive into the deep. Police car dives beneath the waves. Rescue helicopter lights the way from above. Deep beneath the sea, the fishing boat is trapped. From above, rescue helicopter lowers the hook. A lifeline descends into the dark waters, reaching for the trapped boat. On the surface, the rescue crane truck arrives, ready to pull the fishing boat to safety. Rescue cables lock on tight. The fishing boat is secured. Now, the lift begins. Success! The fishing boat breaks the surface. Rescue cars working together. The mission is a triumph. The big water plop.
Go, go, go!
Police Truck's Beach Adventure!